Boomers ruin the taste of food. Go home. A woman dressed in a beautiful gown sneers as she splashes my mom with a hot toddy whiskey. My mom's arms and neck, drenched in whiskey, turn bright red. Maybe we should go home. My mom mutters a single phrase, stands up from her seat, gathers her belongings, and exits the private room at the restaurant. The woman who threw the whiskey at my mom laughs in an amusing manner, seemingly unaware that she has just stepped on a massive landmine. I hope she doesn't end up regretting it later. While sympathizing with my mom in my heart, I chase after her. My name is Jennifer, a 45-year-old nurse working at Williams General Hospital. I live with my slightly cheeky but adorable children and my kind husband. On this day, I was rushing to my destination while checking the time on the watch strapped to my wrist. It was just past 7 p.m. Normally, I would still be at the hospital at this time. However, today is a special day for me, so I asked someone who was available to switch shifts with me. All right, at this pace, I should make it in time. As I turn the corner, careful not to bump into any passers-by, my destination store comes into view. Seeing it, my expression naturally softens. Today is the day we celebrate my mom, Betty's, 70th birthday. Her actual birthday is still a ways off, but since we weren't sure if our schedules would align on the day of, we decided to celebrate today when both of our schedules matched up. I had been adjusting my schedule for the past few months in preparation for today and had carefully planned out how we would celebrate. My mom is not yet near the store. Relieved, I slow my pace and walk towards the store. Looks like she isn't here yet. That's good. I lost my dad in an accident when I was still in elementary school. Since then, my mom has been working hard to raise me well on her own while juggling her job and child-rearing. Even through the eyes of me as a child, my mom looked completely exhausted and painful right after losing Dad. She always put on a brave face in front of me, which made it all the more so. Seeing my mom like that, I decided to pursue a career as a nurse. I wanted to become someone who could be there for like my mom, of course, but also for others who were carrying similar sorrows, even if only a little bit. That's what I thought. I hope she'll be happy. There are several gifts for her in the bag I have slung over my shoulder. As I head towards the store, imagining her reaction when she opens them, the couple walking in front of me catches my attention. They look to be in their early to mid-20s. I mean, Sarah looks seriously beautiful today, don't you think? Right? I wore it as a rehearsal for the wedding ceremony. I need to get a little used to wearing a dress, you know? They walk with their arms intertwined, their footsteps almost dancing. Seeing them from behind, they look so drunk that I almost think their footing is unsteady. The man is wearing a suit, while the girl called Sarah is wearing a beautiful dress. If she's having a wedding ceremony, she must be planning to wear the dress for the occasion. They seem to get along quite well, and I hope they stay on good terms forever. As I'm looking at the couple with a smile, Sarah turns around to look at me. Huh? What's with this old lady? Hey, Daniel, I think this person is glaring at me. With a cute face contorted in displeasure, she tells her boyfriend beside her. Then, the boyfriend who seems to be named Daniel turns around and glares at me. Huh? Hey, what's up? You got a problem? What? No, that's not it. It's just that she was so beautiful, I couldn't help but look. I'm sorry. Apparently, I was staring too much. I wasn't looking because I had a problem with them, but if I made them uncomfortable, I have to apologize for my rudeness. I sincerely apologized for giving them an impolite look. At that, Daniel immediately raises the corners of his mouth in a good mood, and Sarah puts one hand on her cheek, looking not entirely displeased, and laughs. Well, I can't be looking all tired and worn out like you, old woman. Yeah, totally. Don't compare you to my girlfriend, she's super young and cute. If you think I'm pretty, why don't you take care of your skin a bit? I can tell your skin is in bad shape even without bright lighting. Hearing their words, I immediately wanted to take back what I said just a little while ago. They may be cute on the outside, but they're not at all cute on the inside. But since I started this, I'll retreat without saying anything more. Without further engaging with the two who started flirting again without caring about people's eyes, I quietly move away from them, slip through the side, and hurry towards the front of the store. Geez, that was a horrible thing to say. I'm glad my mom wasn't here. Although I had an unexpected mishap, seeing the front of my destination store, my troubled heart quickly settles down. The place I chose today is a high-end restaurant that's often talked about on the internet and social media. This restaurant is so popular that it was very difficult to make a reservation. That's why I had to plan months in advance. This is it, right? Isn't this place way fancier than it looks on social media? Then, I hear the voice I heard earlier, right behind me. Turning around timidly, there they are, Daniel and Sarah, looking up at the restaurant excitedly, as expected. Fortunately, neither of them notice me, and they quickly go inside the restaurant. Seeing that, a sigh of relief naturally escapes my mouth. If possible, I'd rather not get involved with them anymore. Jennifer. Sorry, did you wait long? Oh, Mom. I just got here too. As I'm feeling frustrated, this time I hear a familiar voice. Turning around, I see my mom waving her hand and running up to me. I can't say anything about others, but my mom also looks quite terrible, not much better than me. We both just got off work, so it can't be helped, but her hair isn't even set and her clothes are a hastily put together simple suit. It's not a pretty look, to say the least. But she doesn't seem to care about that at all, and she's smiling happily anyway. Maybe it's because she ran all the way here, or maybe she's that happy, but her cheeks are slightly flushed. I'm so happy that you are celebrating my 70th birthday for me. And at such a fancy place. But is Robert okay with it? Did you get his permission? Of course. He sends his regards too, and I have a gift from him as well. I'll give it to you later. Oh, how wonderful. Jennifer, you really married a wonderful husband, didn't you? I can't thank Robert and his parents enough. Robert is my husband. He was actually planning to celebrate my mom's 70th birthday with us, but he had work he couldn't get out of, so we decided to do it another time. There's a lot to catch up on, but it's almost time for our reservation. We decided to continue our conversation inside the restaurant. Hey! I didn't hear about that. As my mom and I enter the restaurant, Sarah and Daniel are making a huge fuss at the entrance. They're ganging up on a female staff member, apparently trying to pick a fight. So, I'm terribly sorry, but our restaurant prioritizes customers with reservations, so if you don't have a reservation, we'll have to ask you to leave or wait. What? There's an empty table there, in the back, and over there. Just seat us at an empty table. We're customers, you know, customers. I apologize. All the tables currently available are reserved for customers with reservations. Apparently, that couple didn't make a reservation. They seemed to know that this restaurant was popular, but they must have missed the part about reservations being prioritized. It's written in large, eye-catching red letters on the sign in front of the store, on social media, and even on the restaurant's website. It's a restaurant that's always fully booked with reservations, so there's no way they'd be smoothly guided inside if they showed up without a reservation. My mom and I approached them, partly to help the troubled staff member. Excuse me, I have a reservation for 8 p.m. under Johnson. Oh, yes. Ms. Johnson, 4-2, right? We've been expecting you. Right this way, please. When I spoke up, the female staff member who was being harassed looked relieved and smiled. She tried to guide us to a private room in the back in a practiced manner, but... Hey, wait a minute. What? You're prioritizing customers who came in after us? We're the customers who arrived first, you know. That couple wouldn't let us pass quietly. I think the staff's explanation earlier covered everything, but ridiculously, they still don't seem to accept it. 2 male staff members hurry out from the back of the restaurant, looking flustered, but even then, Sarah and Daniel don't back down at all. Instead, they start glaring at my mom and me, their eyes trailing from the top of our heads to the tips of our toes. You should go to a restaurant more suited to your status, don't you think? Aren't you embarrassed to come to a high-end restaurant dressed so shabbily? Yeah, don't you know it's rude not to dress appropriately for the restaurant? Oh, wait, did you think that was dressing up? And today is your once-in-a-lifetime splurge or something? Give it up. Poor people will never understand the value of haute cuisine anyway. I had already confirmed in advance that this restaurant doesn't have a required dress code. I wonder if this couple came dressed in fancy suits and dresses without knowing that. Hey, restaurant staff. We're elite employees at Martinez Bank. We have lots of money. Between these poor people and us wealthy elites, who would you rather have as customers? Who can spend more money at your restaurant? You don't even have to think about it, right? Martinez Bank is a large bank with branches nationwide. Their headquarters is near this restaurant. They must work at that main branch. Just hearing that, they certainly sound elite, but their behavior is far from elite. The staff members exchanged troubled glances, but the staff member who first helped us tried her best to smile as she led us to the back. Ms. Johnson, please come this way. I apologize for any unpleasantness. No, we're fine. Yes, that's right. Please don't worry about it. As we head towards the back, I can still hear Sarah's angry voice shouting, "Wait!" But we decide not to engage. If we ignore her, she'll probably give up eventually. I hope that's the case. My mom and I both respond with a smile to the staff member who apologizes profusely, true to her word. The staff at this restaurant have done nothing wrong. The private room we're led to is a calm space, gently illuminated by warm-colored lights. My mom and I sit across from each other with a table between us. A lot has happened before we got here, but we can finally take a breather. There sure are all kinds of people out there. I wonder if the staff will be okay. Yeah. If they cause too much of a scene, the staff might consider calling the police, so I think it'll be fine. But our celebration was disrupted, even though it's a special occasion. Hee, that doesn't really matter. She didn't seem particularly offended. My mom is always like this. She generally dislikes conflict and isn't the type to get angry easily. No matter what people say to her, she always settles things amicably. If she isn't in a bad mood, it's probably not a good idea to dwell on this topic too much. Today is a special celebration, after all. Before the food is brought out, I take 2 gifts out of my bag and hand them to my mom. Here. This is from me and Robert, and the other one is from the kids to their grandma. Oh my! To receive presents from Jennifer and her wonderful husband, and from my adorable grandchildren. I'm the happiest grandma in the world right now. Saying that, my mom's face breaks into a truly delighted smile as she accepts the 2 gifts. Seeing her like that, the one giving the presents ends up feeling even happier. So much so that the complicated feelings I had in my heart just a little while ago vanish completely. About 2 hours pass after that. My mom's and my stomachs are completely satisfied. As expected of a popular restaurant, not only was the taste excellent, but the appearance of the dishes was also magnificent. We ordered a course meal centered around seafood this time, but it makes me want to come back and try their meat course next time. As we're slowly savoring the dessert that was served last, I hear lively voices coming from outside the private room. Unbelievable! Normally, elites should be given top priority, right? I was looking forward to this high-end restaurant, but prioritizing poor people over us put me in the worst mood. It was the troublesome couple from before. Apparently, a table finally opened up for them. The footsteps pass by the private room we're in and seem to enter the one next to us. If you don't want a scathing review, hurry up and bring out the food. Menu? You decide that for us. We elite customers have been kept waiting for so long. It's only common sense to make an apology dish and bring it out. Even though it's a private room, I can clearly hear Sarah's angry voice since it's the room next door. However, I don't hear the voices of the staff or Daniel at all. Just from that, I can tell how loudly she must be yelling. This ruins the pleasant mood. Maybe we should finish our dessert quickly and go home. Just as I'm about to say that to my mom, I hear footsteps again. Footsteps that seem to be in a hurry. I knew it! You were here! You poor mother and daughter! How dare you cut in line earlier? Well, what? Cut in line? We had a reservation, so... It was Sarah. She rudely kicks over the screen at the entrance of the private room, folds her arms in front of her chest, and looks around the interior. Then, just like earlier, she laughs through her nose with a... Ha! Quite an expensive-looking private room. No wonder you're spending money on things beyond your means, working yourself to the bone until you look so haggard. Sarah calls herself an elite over and over, so she must have a lot of pride. That's probably why she can't stand the fact that we, who look shabby and poor in her eyes, got to enjoy our meal at this restaurant before her. So much so that she had to come all the way here just to make a snide remark. The staff tries to admonish Sarah, but Daniel dismisses it with a, "Hey, hold on a sec. If we stay at the restaurant any longer, we'll only cause more trouble for them. We only have dessert left anyway, so maybe we should eat quickly and leave early." Young lady, you may certainly be an elite, but it's better not to loudly proclaim where you work. Huh? What, are you so dazzled by my elite status that you can't help but realize how shabby you are? No, that's not it. You may be too young to think deeply about it, but what you're doing is... Before my mom can finish her sentence, Sarah snatches a glass from a nearby staff member's tray and, unbelievably, throws its contents at her. The steaming liquid is whiskey, a hot toddy. Ah, hot. Are you okay? I hurriedly stand up with a napkin in hand and rush to her side. The hot whiskey soaks my mom's shoulders, chest, and upper arms, and my mom lets out a scream-like cry as she takes off her suit jacket and pulls up her dress shirt. The presents we sent for her 70th birthday celebration, even though they're wrapped, are completely drenched. Seeing that, Sarah and Daniel. Whiskey is supposed to have an exorcising effect. Isn't that great? The god of poverty that's been haunting you is probably gone now, right? You should be thanking me. There's always boomers who love to lecture young people like us. I can't tell what her skin looks like since she can't take off her shirt, but the part peeking out from under her rolled-up sleeves is bright red. Unable to suppress my rising anger, I glare at the couple who are laughing gleefully. Then Sarah laughs mockingly again. Hee hee, and spits out. Food tastes bad when boomers are around. Go home. At her unbelievably horrible words and actions, I'm about to raise my voice in anger, but my mom's hand stops me. My mom doesn't say anything more. She only mutters a single phrase. Maybe we should go home. Hearing that mutter, both Sarah and Daniel point at my mom and laugh loudly. However, my mom doesn't even engage with that, quickly gathers her things, slips past the two of them, and leaves the private room. Excuse me. The bill, please. I hurriedly chase after her. Ahead, I see the staff members turning pale at the sight of my mom completely drenched. Behind me, I can still hear Sarah and Daniel's grating laughter. But I know. The more good-natured someone usually is, the more terrifying they are when they get angry, to the point where it's no joke. My mom was no exception to that. The next day, as I'm working while holding complicated feelings about last night's commotion, a colleague nurse comes to call me. Miss Johnson, the doctors are asking for you. Huh? Me? Did I mess something up? I'm having trouble switching gears today, so maybe I made a mistake. But my colleague shakes her head and blinks in confusion. No, it doesn't seem to be anything like that. Apparently, a guest is here, and the hospital director has been called too. The hospital director? Okay, I'll go check it out. Though I raise a question mark, I leave things there to my colleague and head to the reception room in the back of the hospital. If there's a visitor, they're usually dealt with in the reception room. Then, I see various doctors gathered around the reception room, and there's an unsettling atmosphere. Oh, Miss Johnson, we've been waiting for you. Come on in. Well, what happened? The CEO of Martinez Bank is here, saying he has something to discuss with you. Martinez Bank. Just hearing that name, complicated feelings seep into my heart again. However, if the CEO is here, last night's incident must have already been reported. Watched by the various doctors, I open the door to the reception room and step inside. Inside, there's a man who seems to be the CEO of Martinez Bank and the couple from last night. The latter two have extremely awkward expressions. Hospital director, what's all the fuss about? After confirming their presence, I call out to the hospital director. Then, well, who knows? In the middle of this busy time, they suddenly barged in. I only contacted them to cancel my bank account, though. The hospital director, my mom, replies calmly. No way. The old lady from yesterday. No, that woman is actually the hospital director of the general hospital. Last night, I am truly sorry. That's right. My mom is the hospital director of Williams General Hospital. The reason my mom and I are so exhausted after work is that we're spending such busy days. We hardly have the time to care about our appearance. Last night was supposed to be a 70th birthday celebration as well as my moment of peace. But it was ruined in the worst way possible. I could painfully understand my mom's feelings when she contacted them to cancel her bank account.
Ms. Jones, I am deeply sorry for this incident. It was my lack of management.
Then, Mr. Davis, the CEO of Martinez Bank, apologizes profusely. Honestly, even if someone who wasn't involved in last night's incident apologizes, it doesn't make me feel any better. That wasn't a work-related issue, but a commotion caused by individuals. My mom seems to feel the same way, and her profile shows none of her usual gentle demeanor, only coldness. But there's clear anger in her eyes, piercing straight through Daniel and Sarah behind Mr. Davis, not him.
Young lady, do you understand the meaning of what I said yesterday? Huh?
Caught off guard by the sudden question, Sarah lets out an unpleasant voice either because she wasn't paying attention or because she hasn't reflected. Hearing that, Mr. Davis and Daniel put their raised index fingers to their lips, desperately trying to silence Sarah.
Martinez Bank is a large bank with branches nationwide, so you probably couldn't resist boasting about working at the headquarters. But if it becomes known that they employ someone with poor conduct like you, it will lead to a decline in the bank's image. Wah! In fact, thanks to you too, I've decided to cancel my Martinez bank account. If you hadn't loudly proclaimed where you work, I wouldn't have been able to figure it out.
At my mom's barrage of words, Sarah's face turns bright red with anger. She waves her fists in rage, but Daniel, in contrast to Sarah, is turning pale as he tries to calm her down.
Hurry up and apologize. CEO, this is terrible. Normally, shouldn't you be protecting your employees in a situation like this? Listening only to the other side's story and unilaterally treating me as the villain. You fool! You even injured Ms. Jones, and you still claim you did nothing wrong?
My mom's skin, which had hot toddy whiskey thrown on it, was burned, though not severely. Even now, fresh bandages peek out from her neck and wrists, not hidden by her white coat.
But these two cut in line, you know? Sure, I admit it was wrong of me to get physical, but cutting in line is.
Still, Sarah insists on her innocence. Next to her, Daniel, still pale, is flustered.
Even though you simply didn't make a reservation, you insist that we cut in line. In that case, shall we contact the restaurant from last night and have them confirm whether we had a reservation? If Mr. Davis sees that, I think he'll understand which one of us is being absurd. Ugh.
Sarah understands it clearly in her head. That she and Daniel, who didn't make a reservation, are 100% at fault. But what prevents her from admitting it is probably the pride within Sarah that's far higher than any mountain around.
Why do I have to apologize to these people? Just because you're doctors doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Hey! Sarah, if you're making the CEO apologize like this, you must be a fairly big customer. But we have plenty of famous corporate clients. Losing one or two won't be much of a blow.
At Sarah's words, stubbornly refusing to apologize, the air in the room felt like it froze. After a few beats of silence, my mom glances at me for my moment. You heard her, Jennifer. What will you do?
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, but since it doesn't seem like it'll be much of a blow, I think I'll cancel my bank account too. Let's see. The hospital director and I each have bank accounts of about $5 billion, so it would be around $10 billion total, right?
At my words, Sarah is shocked, her face turning pale. I can see the corners of her mouth twitching slightly.
$10 billion? Why do you have that much money?
The reason we have that much money is due to the multiple life insurance policies my dad had taken out in case something happened to him. The hospital director of Williams General Hospital was originally my dad. In other words, both of my parents are doctors. Because Dad had taken out multiple life insurance policies while he was alive, after his death, my mom and I received more money than we could spend in a lifetime. Banks profit by taking the money deposited by many customers and lending it out to others. Even if it's the main branch, what would happen if $10 billion suddenly left? It's not hard to imagine, even without thinking too deeply. Sarah looks like she can barely stand, taking a few steps back. She finally seems to understand the gravity of the situation. Clearly too late.
Come on, Sarah. Apologize. Hurry up and apologize.
Daniel is already more than half in tears. However, when Daniel urges Sarah to apologize, she grabs both of his shoulders and confronts him.
When you get down to it, it's your fault. If you hadn't suggested going to that restaurant, this wouldn't have happened. Daniel, you apologize deeply or whatever, and make amends. I already apologized. Besides, the one who was always nagging about wanting to try that restaurant was you, Sarah.
Then why was it yesterday? Why didn't you make a reservation? You can't even perfectly escort a girl, you're the worst. If you're going to be a husband, you should properly protect your wife, you incompetent fool. Then they start blaming each other. I don't know if Daniel understood the gravity of the situation when he came here, or if he's simply timid. I can't tell which, but at least he offered words of apology. Whether we forgive him or not is a separate matter. But from Sarah, I haven't received a single proper apology. In everything leading up to this point, she didn't even show a hint of feeling sorry. I absolutely cannot forgive that.
Enough already!
Mr. Davis shouts angrily, seeing the two of them start arguing at a place they came to apologize. They're both surprised by that, flinching their shoulders and shutting up.
Do you understand the situation you're in? Do you comprehend why you came here? If you were sincerely and wholeheartedly apologizing, that would be one thing, but to engage in such an unsightly dispute.
But CEO, I'm not at fault. The one responsible for this incident is Daniel. I was just invited to dinner by him, and…
Don't be ridiculous. The one who barged into another private room to make snide remarks and poured whiskey on the hospital director was all you, Sarah.
Even though they seemed so close last night, apparently there was no deep trust or affection there. If they truly cared for each other, normally one of them would cleanly take responsibility. But all they're doing now is just shifting the blame for their own wrongdoings onto each other. There wasn't even a shred of affection to be seen.
Enough! This is a serious matter concerning trust. I can't deal with people who cause such a commotion outside any longer. You both are fired.
Fired? No way! Finally, Mr. Davis's anger seems to have exploded. Sarah and Daniel are literally left speechless, only able to open their mouths. My mom, who had been watching the series of exchanges, sighs as if tired, then lifts the hem of her white coat to reveal her bandaged arm. I went to another hospital this morning to get examined and obtain a medical certificate. You're such a child, if I had this hospital issue the certificate, I might be accused of trying to frame you. We will be filing a police report for this incident, so… Sarah, keep that in mind. Police report.
Well, what's that?
Sarah's action of throwing whiskey and causing burns is a clear case of assault. But the hospital director, no, my mom, if she had seen even a hint of remorse in Sarah or a sincere apology, I don't think she would have gone this far. My mom is generally a gentle person. But Sarah stubbornly refused to admit she was wrong, and even when cornered like that, she didn't show a single sign of remorse. Like me, my mom probably couldn't forgive that. At the ominous words police and police report, Sarah's eyes fill with tears as she opens and closes her mouth. She seems to be trying to say something, but the words won't come out. Just so you know, we won't agree to a settlement.
Huh?
Sarah doesn't seem to understand what that means, but my mom apparently has no desire to talk further. She stands up from her chair and immediately leaves the reception room. Jennifer, I'm truly sorry about this. I don't know how to apologize.
No, Mr. Davis has nothing to apologize for.
And even though my mom said that, I don't think she'll actually go through with canceling the bank account, so please don't worry. Mr. Davis sighs as if tired, walks up to me, and apologizes. I hurriedly shake my head, lowering my voice so Sarah and the others can't hear the second half. Then, clear relief seeps into his face.
Hey, Daniel,
what's the police? What's a police report? Did I do something that bad?
How should I know? I'm done with you. Whatever happens to you is none of my business.
No. Don't say that.
Hey.
What should I do? Hey, I'm talking to you. Fired and abandoned even by Daniel, Sarah sinks to the floor powerlessly. All right. I think we're done here.
The hospital isn't free, so please leave soon. Wait. Call the hospital director. Call her one more time. I'll apologize properly. I'll give a deep apology or whatever.
As I approach Sarah to ask her to leave, she clings to me. Her face is desperate. If she was going to panic this much now, she should have just apologized meekly from the start. I let out a small sigh and shake my head.
Unfortunately, the hospital director is not here for free. She's in a position where she's so busy every day to the point of exhaustion that Sarah would blurt out that she looks shabby. Sarah! You even spat out such abuse.
When I repeat the words said at the restaurant last night, Sarah makes an awkward expression. Reacting to that, Mr. Davis's anger, which had settled down once, begins to build up again.
We're in a position where people's lives are entrusted to us. We do get exhausted. There are so many times where a minute or a second can mean life or death. I can't afford to care that much about ourselves. But I've never once thought I looked shabby. That's just because I didn't know your occupation. It just slipped out. I didn't mean any harm. So you think it's okay to mock non-medical professionals as shabby? I do think Sarah should be prosecuted after all. She's still young. If she reflects in prison, she might gain some common sense.
Even if a police report is submitted, if there's no prosecution, it won't result in a criminal record. Also, if a settlement is reached, cases often end up not being prosecuted. However, my mom has already declared she won't agree to a settlement. If the victim doesn't agree to a settlement, the criminal penalty can't be reduced, and there's a high probability of prosecution. In the first place, my mom and I have more than enough money, so even if we're offered settlement money, it won't lead to us being satisfied. There are times when settlement money won't be accepted, but I have no obligation to tell Sarah that.
No, I don't want to go to prison. Do something, I'll apologize.
Sarah says that and cries loudly, but Mr. Davis, Daniel, and no one stood by Sarah's side. The one I want to stand by isn't someone with no common sense like her. Afterwards, my mom formally filed a police report. Sarah's dad apparently runs a company as the president, and she cried to him. But not only did she not receive help, she got scolded harshly. Why? Because Sarah's dad is one of my mom's patients.
How could you do that to Ms. Jones?
He was furious, and I heard that was the trigger for her family cutting ties with her. Sarah and Daniel were fired from Martinez Bank as declared at the hospital, and the two apparently broke up. Given how ugly their blame shifting was, it's only natural. After the police report was accepted, I heard rumors that Sarah was arrested. My mom's case isn't that major of an incident. So even if a police report was filed, it was unclear if the police would take action. Nevertheless, the reason it led to an arrest is because, appallingly, Sarah had frequently caused similar problematic behavior elsewhere. Complaining about unsatisfactory service at stores until she was satisfied, throwing tea at others, and so on. As police reports piled up, the police seemed to take action, unable to overlook it. Naturally, she was prosecuted and found guilty at trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison without suspension of execution. Sarah had boasted so proudly about being an elite, but now that this has happened, she can no longer be an elite. No one will see Sarah that way anymore. Fired from her job, dumped by her boyfriend, and abandoned by her family, who knows how Sarah will live after serving her sentence? I was curious, but I quickly stopped thinking about it. It's not my business. This time, I probably won't get involved with her ever again.
Welcome. Ms. Johnson, we've been expecting you.
Greeted by the cheerful staff's voice, we step inside the restaurant. Today, we've come back to that high-end restaurant to redo the 70th birthday celebration that was ruined that day. Of course, with a proper reservation. We went to various stores since morning, buying flowers for the occasion and repurchasing the presents that were drenched in alcohol. Apparently, the reason my mom was so angry that time wasn't because she got burned, but because our presents were ruined.
I'm so happy to be able to come eat with Jennifer again like this.
That celebration was ruined that day, so let's enjoy today even more than back then.
Hee, a lot happened that time, but since we get to enjoy both the seafood and meat courses as a result, let's consider it a good thing.
Last time was the seafood course, but today it's the meat course. Remembering that commotion still fills me with irritation, but hearing my mom's words, those complicated feelings quickly fade. I think she is truly amazing. Even emotional shifts that are difficult for me, she does them so easily like this. We toast in front of the dishes brought to us. That time, we celebrated before her birthday because our schedules weren't likely to align, but today is genuinely my mom's birthday. My mom, now 70, will retire as hospital director next year. It's often said that there's no retirement age for medical professions, but precisely because it's a job where people's lives and health are entrusted, my mom says mistakes are never allowed. That's why she wants to step down from the position of hospital director before her judgment declines with age, leading to a serious mistake, and entrust it to the next generation.
How about going to a trip after retiring? You should do lots of things you couldn't before due to lack of time. I bet there are plenty, right?
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll think about it. But you know, I'm more than happy enough as I am now. I was really devastated when I lost my husband, but thanks to you, Jennifer, I was able to recover. You are happy, and you cherish me like this. I'm truly happy. My mom, smiling as she says that, looked delighted and truly happy, just as she said. Seeing my mom like that, I start feeling happy too.
We're going on a trip overseas for a week, so please take care of Frederick, my son and his wife announced as they brought their grandson Frederick over, apparently planning to leave him behind.
We thought we'd take a trip, just the two of us. Please, take care of everything. It's been ages since we last saw our son and his wife. I can't even recall when it was. Leaving little Frederick like this, I wonder what kind of parenting that is.
Let's eat, dinner's ready.
My husband, Morris, and I were about to dine at the dining table when Frederick headed to the backyard. Curious, Morris followed him, but...
What are you eating? Stop that right now.
Morris's voice echoed all the way to the kitchen. Alarmed, I rushed to the backyard and found Frederick eating weeds. I quickly stopped him, brought him inside, and gave him a proper meal. First time having a warm meal. How could it be his first time eating a meal? Morris and I couldn't hide our astonishment at Frederick's remark. My name is Olivia, I'm 72. Morris and I live a harmonious life together. He's a gentle soul, we never fight, and life has been content. At this age, even the feeling of anger seems to fade away. We've remodeled our home to be barrier-free, thinking of our old age. All we wanted was to live peacefully. But then, an incident that would change our tranquil life happened. We have a 37-year-old son, Lori. Lori moved out after getting a job, and since then, he hardly ever visited. Even during Christmas gatherings with relatives, he was absent, becoming estranged from the family. About a decade ago, Lori suddenly got in touch to announce his marriage. Despite the good news, he and his wife decided not to have a wedding. When we asked why, it was either the cost or his wife Nicole's shyness. We reassured them money wasn't an issue, but they were adamant about not having a wedding, so we respected their decision. Years passed, and I was shocked when Lori informed us about the birth of Frederick. By the time we had heard, Frederick was already a year old. Lori always had a way of surprising us after the fact, but this was the most shocking news yet. Morris and I were so eager to see Frederick that we kept asking Lori to bring him over. Once, they did visit with Frederick. It was the first time we met Nicole and Frederick. But Lori claimed he was short on time and left after just 5 minutes. Since then, there's been no contact with Frederick. Even when we visited Lori's house, we were never invited in, and I had resigned myself to never getting to know Frederick. Years went by. As Morris and I were dining one evening, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. It was our son and his wife. "What brings you here without any prior notice?" I asked, only to hear,
"We're off on an overseas trip for a week, so please look after Frederick,"
Lori said, thrusting Frederick in front of me. "We thought it's time for a trip, just the two of us." "Please, take care," Nicole added, smiling nonchalantly. as if abandoning little Frederick for an overseas trip was nothing out of the ordinary. Do my son and his wife not feel any parental responsibility? They left without a second thought, leaving me bewildered. Stunned by the sudden turn of events, I noticed Frederick seemed cold, so I quickly ushered him inside. Despite being left by his parents, Frederick was oddly composed. Was he used to being left with others? Observing Frederick, I couldn't help but notice peculiar things. Despite it being the dead of winter, Frederick was dressed thinly. He wore shoes without socks, and his feet were cold.
What's going on, Frederick?
Morris asked, his face lighting up at the sight of him. But almost instantly, his joy turned to concern.
Why are you dressed in such dirty clothes?
He whispered, so only I could hear. I was puzzled too, but I had no answers. Frederick was wearing clothes that looked unwashed for days. Realizing we needed to warm him up, I decided it was time for a shower. Frederick was carrying a backpack, so I checked it for a change of clothes, finding only a pair of underwear and a thin garment resembling an undershirt. In a hurry, I left Frederick with Morris and dashed out to buy him clothes. I bought clothes, underwear, and socks for a couple of days and rushed back just as Frederick finished his shower. When I went to dress him, I was shocked to see his frail body covered in bruises and turned to Morris, who quietly nodded. It felt like we were both thinking the same thing. But in Frederick's presence, we held our tongues. We were in the middle of our meal when Frederick arrived, but his appearance made eating the last thing on our minds. The food had gone cold, so I went to the kitchen to reheat it.
Are you hungry, Frederick?
I asked, only to hear, yes. He nodded faintly in response, seemingly very hungry.
I'll get it ready quickly, just wait a bit.
I hurried to prepare the meal. And in about 10 minutes,
dinner's ready, let's eat.
But as Morris and I were about to eat, Frederick headed towards the front door.
Where are you going?
Worried, Morris followed him.
What are you eating? Stop that right now.
Morris's loud voice filled the kitchen, so I rushed towards the door only to find Frederick eating weeds from the garden. I was stunned by the sight, unable to believe it. Morris threw the weeds Frederick was holding onto the ground. Frederick, looking scared, stammered, I'm sorry.
Because you said we were going to eat.
He looked as if he might burst into tears at any moment.
It's okay. I didn't mean to startle you with my loud voice. Let's eat inside.
Frederick must have been frightened by Morris's voice.
Don't eat grass, eat this food here, okay?
Frederick's eyes lit up as he looked at the dining table.
Can I have this too? Of course, you can. Eat as much as you want.
In this warm atmosphere, Frederick took a bite of the chicken noodle soup. Seeing Frederick cold, I had prepared the warm meal. First time having a warm meal. What? What did Frederick just say? I was momentarily unable to comprehend his words. Had he never had a warm meal before? Morris and I exchanged shocked glances.
Have you never had a warm meal before? What do you usually eat?
Curious, I asked Frederick.
Well, usually grass or whatever Mom and Dad leave behind.
Grass, really? Why aren't they providing him with proper meals? I was utterly baffled. Living without a warm meal is unimaginable. Most people can't fathom not having one. Eating grass can't provide the necessary nutrients. Frederick's frailty made it clear that he wasn't being fed properly. When he first arrived, Frederick barely spoke, but he seemed to be gradually opening up. After finishing the meal, we decided to talk to Frederick.
How old are you, Frederick?
We didn't know his exact age, as Lori never told us anything about him.
I'm 5 years old. Dad said so recently.
he said. It was strange to hear that he knew his age only because his dad mentioned it. He might have never celebrated a birthday. Morris then asked,
"So, do you go to preschool?"
Preschool is typical for a 5-year-old, but Frederick's response was unexpected.
"Preschool? What's that?"
He didn't even know what preschool was. His parents likely never enrolled him.
"Do you always stay at home?"
I asked. Yes, always at home. Not sending him to preschool and leaving him home all day. What does he do all day? Numerous questions crossed my mind.
"What do you do at home?"
Morris seemed curious about how Frederick spent his days. I make houses out of cardboard and stay inside them. I only come out to use the bathroom and eat. Frederick said this matter-of-factly. I felt sorry for him just being in the house all the time. But the thought of him spending the entire day in a cardboard box was unbelievable. The way our son and his wife were treating Frederick, it was as if they didn't consider him human, and it was unbearable.
"Are you not allowed to leave the cardboard box?"
Morris's face hardened as he asked. Yes. If I leave it, Mom and Dad get angry. They do painful things to me, so I mustn't leave, he said. The painful things likely meant that our son and his wife were physically abusing Frederick. Frederick's bruises now had an explanation. The idea of him being treated so cruelly, despite doing nothing wrong, was too much to bear. Being always at home likely meant he had no friends. And when his parents returned from their trip, he'd have to resume that dreadful life. That was something we desperately wanted to avoid. What should we do? We had to prevent that at all costs, but how? Should we confront our son and his wife, asking them to stop their terrible behavior? But the likelihood of them changing seemed slim, and they might react even more angrily if criticized about Frederick's care. Taking Frederick in is honestly difficult at our age. We can't guarantee how long we'll be able to care for him, and it would be irresponsible to promise otherwise. Should we require care ourselves, we might end up burdening him instead. Glancing at Morris, I could tell he was deep in thought, probably pondering the same concerns. Despite these worries, anger towards our son and his wife was growing inside me. How could they treat their own child so cruelly? Lori, our son, seemed inhuman for not cherishing his child. I couldn't forgive them. Nor did I want to. Suddenly, Morris stood up.
"I need to go somewhere,"
he said. It was rare to see Morris so visibly upset. The usually gentle Morris rarely gets angry. It must be serious for Morris to be this upset. He left the house, and although I didn't know where he went, he returned after about 10 minutes.
"I've bought lots of treats for Frederick. Eat as much as you want,"
he said, presenting bags full of sweets and ice cream. Frederick had never had anything but weeds and leftovers. Morris probably wanted to treat him to something delicious.
"Can I really eat these? Mom always eats this ice cream. I've always wanted to try it. And Dad's favorite snacks. They look so tasty."
Frederick's eyes sparkled. Our son and his wife had enjoyed these treats themselves, but had never shared them with Frederick. Frederick, who was born into this world, is innocent.
"I'm so anxious about returning Frederick to Lori. Can we keep him here for a while?"
Though uncertain about the future, I found myself asking this.
"Gramps and Granny are really kind. I love it here, it's fun."
Frederick seemed genuinely happy.
"I was thinking the same. Let's keep him here for now and think about the future slowly."
Morris seemed anxious about our future too, hence his cautious words. Ideally, we'd like to see Frederick grow up, but the future is uncertain. Yet we were left without an answer for what to do next. One thing was clear, though, we didn't want to send Frederick back to our son and his wife. Life with Frederick was more enjoyable than we'd imagined. Raising a child again after so long was nostalgic and deeply moving. If only our son and his wife were decent people, and we could all live happily. The sadness of the current reality was frustrating. A week flew by, and tomorrow our son and his wife are due back from their trip.
I've thought it over. I believe we should report Lori to the police. It's the only way to make them realize the gravity of their actions.
Morris suggested reporting Lori to the authorities. It's a painful decision for any parent, but it seemed the only option left.
Let's do it.
I agreed with Morris. If we didn't act today, our son and his wife might return and forcibly take Frederick away. With that thought, we hurried to the police station. After explaining everything, the officers decided to wait for our son and his wife at the airport and take them into custody immediately. I texted Lori to find out their flight's arrival time.
When is your flight landing? We're planning to pick you up.
The police, not us, would be there to meet them, but it wasn't a complete lie. Lori replied within 15 minutes, and I passed the information to the police. They arranged to have officers ready at the airport at the specified time. Everything was set for their return. We felt relieved to leave it in the hands of the police. Unable to sit still, Morris and I decided to go to the airport and witness their arrest. We took Frederick with us. It seemed to be his first time seeing airplanes, and he was visibly excited. We arrived at the lobby 10 minutes before the scheduled arrival and spotted the officers. The tension was palpable, and even though the officers were in place, we couldn't relax just yet. As the arrival time approached, passengers started to emerge. Soon, we saw our son and his wife walking towards us. The moment they crossed the airport gate, they were surrounded and apprehended by the police.
What's going on? We haven't done anything. Is this a case of mistaken identity?
Lori shouted, obviously caught off guard.
What's happening? Are you saying we're criminals? This doesn't make any sense. Let us go.
Nicole was also in disbelief, verging on hysteria. They were swiftly taken away by the officers. We tried to shield Frederick from the scene, but he might have caught a glimpse. Morris and I believed separating Frederick from his parents was for the best. Yet we couldn't help but wonder if he might find the separation painful. The uncertainty made me suddenly anxious.
Will you be sad not seeing Dad and Mom for a while?
It was a delicate question, but one I felt needed asking.
Not sad at all. I'm with Gramps and Granny.
Hearing those words brought tears to my eyes. It reassured us that we had made the right decision. We vowed to fill Frederick's life with all the love and care we could offer, ensuring he would never feel sorrow again. Several days later, our son and his wife, who were taken into police custody, were being interrogated in separate rooms. Both were insistent.
We haven't done anything.
We don't know anything. And seemed unwilling to cooperate. According to the police, there had been prior reports from neighbors about hearing Frederick's cries and Lori's shouts. At that time, they either pretended not to be home or simply didn't answer, so the police couldn't take any action, leaving the case unresolved. However, this time, Frederick's bruises served as incontrovertible evidence, ensuring that charges would be brought against them. The interrogation dragged on, as our son and his wife refused to admit their guilt. Eventually, they conceded but tried to shift the blame onto each other in an attempt to evade responsibility. As a parent, I was overwhelmed with shame. How had our son turned out this way? Lori was not only neglectful but also abusive towards his own child and, to make matters worse, showed no remorse or willingness to take responsibility. In the end, both were penalized for failing to adequately care for their child. They won't be able to leave custody for a while. We also decided to demand compensation from them. Considering the way Frederick had been treated, it felt insufficient to merely see them held accountable. We intend to ensure they pay restitution to Frederick after serving their sentences. Later, we learned from the police that our son and his wife were financially strained. Despite a low income, Lori frequented various bars, drinking nightly. Nicole worked part-time but spent her entire salary on herself, including expenses for beauty treatments and nail care, leaving little for other needs. They were living day to day, barely managing their own meals. When unexpectedly faced with the cost of raising a child, they tried to minimize expenses by providing the bare minimum in food and clothing. Hearing this chilled me to the bone. It could have cost Frederick his life. That's what I thought. The thought of parents inflicting pain on their children, with some even losing their lives, was horrifying. While Frederick's treatment was inexcusable, we were relieved he was still alive. Since then, Morris and I have been living a joyful and peaceful life with Frederick. His newfound regular meals seem to have invigorated him, and he's thriving. His once frail body is now healthy, which is a great relief. However, keeping up with the energy of a 5-year-old can be challenging for us. Morris and I even started walking to build our stamina, but it's hard to keep pace with a child's energy. During this time, we learned that Lucas, my nephew, had returned to his hometown after several years. Lucas is a bit younger than Lori, probably in his mid-30s. He's married, and I recall hearing they've been struggling with infertility for years. Reminded of this, I invited Lucas over.
I finally managed to transfer back home,
he said, clearly delighted. I invited Lucas because I wanted to discuss Frederick with him. Known for his calm demeanor and ease with children, I hoped Lucas might take care of Frederick should anything happen to us. Seeing Lucas and Frederick hit it off at their first meeting reassured us, and we thought of entrusting Frederick to him. When we broached the subject, Lucas happily agreed to take on the responsibility. He promised to visit regularly to build a bond with Frederick. Deep down, we hope Lucas might eventually adopt Frederick, a sentiment we've shared with him. Until then, we're committed to creating the happiest home possible for Frederick.